All month long at All Nations Church, we're celebrating Black History Month with a series that's backed by popular demand called Black History Makers, where we're looking at the lives and influence of Black Christians in history so that their faith story can inspire your own. Today we kick off our series with the story of an incredible woman named Mary. Mary Bethune was born in 1875 to a family of 17 in South Carolina. Her parents were former slaves who continued to work for their former owner after the Civil War. Mary's parents eventually saved enough money to buy land to farm cotton for themselves. And as Mary watched her parents overcome these difficulties, it was here that God began to fashion in her own determination and resilience that would last her the rest of her life. As a child, Mary and her mother would deliver laundry to white people's homes to earn extra income. And one time while Mary is delivering laundry to a home, she saw a book and picked it up and began to read. But a white child snatched it away from her, telling her she didn't know how to read. It was a formative moment for Mary, and later on she would say,
"The only difference between white and colored people was the ability to read and write."
It was in this experience that God fashioned in Mary a love for education. She would eventually enroll in a one-room black schoolhouse run by a Presbyterian church. Mary would walk 5 miles to school, go to school, walk 5 miles home, help with the farm, and then teach her family to read after sunset. Mary eventually received a college scholarship and attended the Moody Bible Institute with the intent of becoming a Christian missionary to Africa. She would later be told that black missionaries were not needed, so she decided to become a teacher instead. In 1899, at 24 years old, Mary and her husband started teaching at a mission outreach to prisoners in Florida. While there, she noticed the needs and neglect of young girls in the community. Mary's response? In 1904, Mary used her own money to rent a small house next to the city dump for $11 a month so she could start her own school. She would later say,
"I believe that the greatest hope for the development of my race lies in training our women. Educating women raises the lives of family as a whole."
But there was a problem. Mary didn't have any school supplies for her new students or her new school. So Mary's response? She made desks out of discarded crates and pencils from charred sticks and ink pens from elderberry juice. Her first enrollment was only 12 students and they didn't have enough money to cover rent. Mary's response? Her and her students would sell food to the city crew working at the dump. And it was here that God fashioned in Mary an ability to raise funds, an ability that would last her the rest of her life. Later on, looking back at this time, Mary would say,
"I plunged into a job of creating something from nothing. Though I hadn't a penny left, I considered money as the smallest part of my resources. I had faith in a living God, faith in myself, and a desire to serve."
Around 1911, one of Mary's students became sick, but no hospital would treat black patients. Mary's response? She found a white doctor who made a donation to her school and demanded they give treatment to her student. After the treatment, Mary visited her student but was forced to enter the hospital through the back door. Once inside, she found her student being neglected by the hospital staff. Mary's response? She raised money and bought a cabin next to her school for $5,000 and made the first black hospital in her town. And God used these experiences in Florida, with Mary serving behind the scenes, overcoming incredible odds, to prepare her for the future that He had. In 1917, Mary became the Florida chapter president of the National Association of Colored Women, and then became the national president in 1924. In 1928, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge invited her to partake in a child welfare conference. Then in 1930, U.S. President Herbert Hoover appointed her to the White House Conference on Child Health. In 1936, she served as secretary of the National Youth Administration, helping more than 300,000 black men and women find employment. And because of this accomplishment, she became close and loyal friends with the U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt and his wife Eleanor, which led to the formation of the Federal Council of Negro Affairs to help the administration better meet black concerns. In 1944, Mary ensured that her legacy would last long beyond her by establishing the United Negro College Fund. Today, 60,000 active college students still receive assistance because of Mary's work. Then in 1945, just after World War II, Mary Bethune was the only black woman present to help establish the United Nations. Looking back on her accomplishments, Mary would say,
Faith is the first factor in a life devoted to service. Without faith, nothing is possible. With it, nothing is impossible.
After Mary died of a heart attack on May 18, 1955, there have been statues, postage stamps, and schools bearing Mary's name and image. She's repeatedly named among the most influential figures not only in Black history, but American history. As she would say,
not only the Negro child, but children of all races should read and know of the achievements, accomplishments, and deeds of the Negro. World peace and brotherhood are based on a common understanding of the contributions of all.
And those are perfect words for us as we begin our celebration of Black history makers. You guys have a great discussion, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.